What's going on, gang, and welcome back to Scared of Normal. I'm Mike Murfitt, joined today by my co-host Cheyenne Murfitt, and on this episode, we're stoked to be talking about cultivating patience and all the benefits around becoming familiar with the skill of patience. But first, it's been a little while since we've done a podcast episode, and me and Cheyenne were talking about that before we sat down. It feels really good to be running that intro off again, but I just wanted to say thank you to each and every one of you for being patient with us, because we have been working nonstop here at the Traction headquarters over the last few weeks. I think this episode will probably be 5 weeks since we put out the last one. So I think we can officially call this season 2 of Scared of Normal, which is pretty exciting. But we have some really exciting things that are going on here in the Traction headquarters building. We're really excited to share that with you. And that's exactly where the idea from this episode came from, actually, is patience. We've had to be so patient over the last, at this point, 4 months with a lot of stuff that we've been working on here internally. And we ask that you be patient with us because we're really excited to share that stuff with you. And hopefully we'll be able to do that in the next week or two. But some of the stuff we've been working on is going to be an absolute game changer here at Traction. And we're excited to see what you guys think of it when we share it with you. So with all that being said, let's get into this episode talking about what patience is.
Oh, you know what? Actually, I had to practice patience on my way here to this podcast because it was the longest drive I've ever taken from our house to the Traction headquarters. It was literally like a 5-minute drive, you guys, and it took me like 15 minutes. I just kept getting behind all of these trucks that were going so slow. And it was like so ironic to me because I was like, okay, I'm driving here to go do this episode on patience. And I'm like really having to dig deep on this patience right now because I was so irritated. But
yeah, I feel like it's been something that, like I just mentioned earlier, like it's something I've had to exercise exponentially over the last few weeks and months.
Mm-hmm.
There's been so many things going on. One of the things is like one of our vendors, our bank actually, they did a conversion and they deleted a ton of our financial data, and it's been like pulling teeth to get that stuff back. And it's been so hard to be patient, especially when it's something that's outside of our control.
Mm-hmm.
Just, being sure or like kind of trusting the process and hoping that they're going to be able to resolve that. So yeah, patience is definitely a tough one. But I think all of us can practice a little more patience, and the outcome of practicing patience and creating better habits around patience, it's insane how much value that can add to your life. And the quote that always stands out to me about patience is, "The day you plant the seed is not the day you eat the fruit. Be patient and stay the course." And that's one that's always like kind of going around in my brain when my patience is being tested. Mm-hmm. And it's really is the truth. Like, I think a lot of us want to see the result right away. And I was talking to somebody about this recently. For the last like 3.5 years, I've had a pretty bad back injury where I haven't been able to ride my bike. And a lot of my bike skill, I feel like, has gone by the wayside because of that injury. Well, recently I was fortunate enough to get the back issue sorted out, and now I'm kind of trying to get back to riding bikes at that high level that I was. And somebody the other day was like, well, you weren't riding at that level for how long? Like, it takes time to get that back. Like, it's not going to come back in 1 week or 1 month. Like, you weren't riding at the level for 3.5 years. So be patient. And again, resonates with this episode. So we're going to kick this one off by talking about the power of patience. So Cheyenne, to you, what is the power of patience?
Ooh, that's a good question. I love that quote that you brought back up. The day you plant the seed is not the day you eat the fruit, or I've heard it like it's not the day that you reap the harvest. Mm-hmm. That is one that I've used several times in my own business. I have a business of my own. And the power of patience, to me, I've actually been exploring this idea within my own business lately, because I think the power of patience comes down to like the quality of the life that you're living in your everyday moments. Like, I think that when you can start to master patience and you can like embrace patience, then it's like, then all of the little moments that are happening in your day, all of the little experiences that you're coming across, like that's your life. And that is like what creates your life. So I think the power of patience is really like giving you your life back when you like zone out or zoom out and you really think about what that power holds. I think it really does, like, it gives you your life. It
I
gives
like
you
that.
like your everyday.
Yeah. No, it is true. Like when you really think about patience, and this is something that has dawned on me in recent months, is you hear people talk about, the process, trust the process, fall in love with the process. Well, in reality, the process is exactly what you just said, those everyday little things that add up to a larger sum. And I think oftentimes we look at people who are successful or doing the things that we want to be doing, especially in the age of social media, and we say, I want that.
Mm.
And we forget to realize that those people also are going through the process of those small little things all day long. And all they're sharing is the highlight reel, but everybody has to go through the process and they have to be patient. So again, falling back in love with what the actual process of life is, whether it's, you're going to your job. So you're waking up in the morning and you're going through your morning routine and you're driving to work and you're listening to your favorite, musician or podcast, or you're sitting in silence, just getting ready for your day, whatever it is, it's falling in love with that process, getting into work, going through that process, getting home, falling in love with all those little things, I think is really, really important. And that requires patience. It requires you to be present in your day, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that that's something that, for me, the more I've become aware of that, I'm like, wow, like I can process things a little bit easier, which then increases my patience level. And I'm not feeling so tested all the time when something doesn't go to plan.
Mm-hmm. Just like relieves that stress too from like your everyday. It's like, I don't know. I think we all deal with a heavy amount of stress, and sometimes it's like self-inflicted stress, especially like you were saying, just the age that we're living in right now with social media and how accessible it is to like look at everybody else's worlds, everybody else's life, everybody else's achievements and success and everything that they're going through. I think we can like it just naturally starts adding this pressure and this stress to yourself, right? Like you're consuming these things and you're seeing it, and then you're like tuning back into your life and it's like, oh my gosh, well maybe I'm not there yet or whatever it is. But when you can really tune back into that patience or that just presence too. I think presence and patience kind of go hand in hand. It relieves that stress for yourself because you do fall back in love with the process. You are in those everyday moments and you are like taking a step back and just like evaluating what you can control in the everyday.
I like that, what you're saying there is like those everyday moments. I'm going to go back to that again, but it's important to acknowledge like every single bit of progress, every little win. And like, you're not going to pay attention to those little wins when you're so far looking down the road and you're not being patient, you're not being present. You're overlooking a lot of like the small victories that are happening every day, and it can be something as simple as like, you're saving for vacation and you saved $1 today. That is a win. It might not feel like it because you're not on vacation yet and you still need to save another $1,000, but that's a win. So celebrate that win. And the only way you can celebrate that win is you fall in love with the process, you're present every day, and through that, you're creating patience. And when you get to that end result, you're going to be able to celebrate that even more. It's going to mean even more because you celebrated every single win leading up to that. And I think that's something that, again, it's so hard to do. It's so hard to be aware because we're always so focused on, I can't wait to be done with work today.
Yeah.
Well, fall in love with the process of work. Be patient with work. I heard somebody explain it really well the other day. It must have been an Instagram reel or something, but it was this mindset shift. And he said, anybody can do it in any job. Even if you're flipping burgers at McDonald's, you can go in and say, oh, I hate flipping burgers. This is the worst job ever. I can't wait to get out of here. Or you can go in and say, I'm going to be the best burger flipper ever. And you can take pride in that work. You can fall in love with that process. And that inevitably is going to create a very patient lifestyle. It's a habitual thing. And I love that idea of thinking like, I mean, you see it in coffee a lot. We're obviously in the coffee industry. You see it in coffee. You go into any specialty coffee shop and a barista is so in love with their work. But you go into a Starbucks and they're not. What is the difference? It's the mentality that's the leadership there, of course, but those people are going in and they have that mindset of, I take pride in my craft. You can apply that anywhere. And I think that that's a really cool step in the right direction to putting some more patience in your life. Or if you're out working on your car in the garage or you're vacuuming the house, be the best at it. Strive to be the best.
That reminds me too a lot of, it's probably hand in hand with this mindset of, instead of like, I've seen it done with to-do lists, but then also you can bring it into like everyday work. But instead of like a to-do list, like I have to do these things, or like you wake up and you're like, oh my gosh, I have to do this. I have to go to work. I have this appointment. I have all of these things. I have to go work on my car now. Like, and just the way that you speak it that way, like it just feels like this burden, right? But like if you can switch just the words from I have to I get to, like I get to go to work today. Like I have a job. Like that's
I have a car to
I
work
have
on.
a car to work on. Like I have the means to go to this appointment or whatever it is. And it's like, I think that too is one of those mindset shifts that can cultivate and like produce that patience in your everyday life, because it is this like switch from obligation maybe almost to just gratitude for the life that you're having.
Yeah, that you're fortunate enough to live. That we're all fortunate enough to live. We all have those things that are little wins. So again, changing that mindset from saying like I have to work on my car to I get to, that's a win. You get to work on your car. It might not be the most fun thing in the world, but you can make it fun by changing that mindset.
Yeah.
We touched on the wins. I think it's also important to touch on failures or losses with patience. Patience allows us to learn from those failures and setbacks, and it turns them into valuable experiences. And again, that requires being present, right? And that's, I think, one of the most difficult things. Like, be present in the moment, be patient, learn from why you failed or why you lost, and figure out how you can pick up the pieces, because it really is like patience is the foundation of resilience, and it really does help us build back stronger if you can be patient enough and present enough to realize why you messed up or why you failed at doing something. Like, I think a lot of times we're so in the headspace of rushing, so we're trying to pick up the pieces as quickly as we can and move forward. Well, that's 9 times out of 10 going to result in more failure, right? So take the extra 10 minutes, figure out why you failed, celebrate that failure, and build back stronger, become more resilient through failure. Patience teaches us that. And I feel like you look at a lot of people who are very successful. I've said this before on many episodes, but they are the biggest failures you know. They've learned how to fail really well because they are very patient in that failure.
Failing forward. Just taking those failures and pushing it forward with what you can learn from it. And I think that's, just echoing what you're saying. But
and it also helps. Patience in failure also helps us set realistic, achievable, understandable goals. Because a lot of times, again, like I think we're taught from an early age, like set these crazy outlandish goals, 3 years, 5 years. Not saying that that's a bad thing to have, but are they realistic? Are you saying I'm patient enough to get to that 3-year goal? Or is it too ambitious? Like, be very realistic with yourself. And I think developing a habitual mindset of being patient allows us to really put it into a scale of saying, okay, in a year, like I would like to do that, but I know that I have all these other obligations. Am I going to have enough time? And again, this is where patience comes in. Okay, I can roll it back and say, well, that's ambitious. Let's say a year and a half, 2 years. Great. Now that's realistic. I'm not feeling like I'm going to fail every step of the way. That's a win. Let's move forward. And that's a super cool way to approach life. And inevitably, these things create less stress in our lives, because we all know we could use a whole lot less stress. And I think patience is by way of creating less stress in our life.
Yeah, 100%. I was having this conversation with a friend yesterday that I'm going to tie it back to what we're talking about. But our generation, so Michael and I are both 31. So what are we, millennials?
Millennials, yeah.
We're millennials. And both of us have kind of walked a different path in life. Like Michael started in corporate world. I was a teacher for 6 years. And we have kind of walked into this entrepreneurial world that we've created for ourselves. We both run Traction together, but then we also have separate businesses that we're doing. And I think it's a really cool thing to see this generation and then like the generations that are coming after us rewrite the story of what life gets to look like. And I think it also will tie back into this like piece of the patience that we're almost like starting to recultivate for ourselves and then teach our families, teach our kids, and then like teach the people that we're surrounded by to like start prioritizing. Because I think in previous generations, like there were these like set goals for us, right? Like, and I think we can even feel those. Like you get out of high school, you go to college, you get this job, you work this job for a certain amount of time, you have kids, you get like all of those little milestones. And I think that sometimes like that's where we get caught up, right? Like that's where you can tend to get caught up is like, okay, well, let me hit this next thing that's on this roadmap of this, societal norm that's been set for me.
An expectation of you that's not an expectation of yourself.
Exactly. And so I think that like, it's also just cool to acknowledge the fact that like, I do feel like there is a wave of people that are kind of pushing back on that norm, setting these goals for ourselves that don't look like the goals that have always been presented to us, and are learning to like tap into the everyday moments that are going to allow us to get to those goals, the everyday failures, the successes, the wins, like you were saying, and taking the time to celebrate that and learn from it, is like that work of creating that patience for yourself in your life. So, and then that's life. Like I was saying, like those are the moments that create your life. And if you can just cultivate that presence there, that like mindset of growth and wanting to learn from every moment that you have, hitting those goals that are looking different these days than they once did, I think it's really cool.
Yeah, that is really cool. And we're very fortunate to get to live in a world where we get to focus on being patient, being self-aware, going after the things that we actually want to do. Because, although our parents' generation had the same opportunities in some sort of way, they didn't have the same transparency that we do through like social media and understanding that you can go do whatever you want. But our parents' generation, they didn't have that type of freedom, and their parents didn't have that. So we're very fortunate to live in a time and a place where we have the transparency of, oh, wait, I don't have to do things I don't want to do. I can do whatever and make a life for myself. That's beautiful. We're very fortunate for that. We're very fortunate that we get to focus on being self-aware and give ourselves love and be patient instead of, running out the door and doing all the things we feel obligated to do. It is very interesting to see that mindset shift in people our age. And you talk to younger people and same thing. It is a big shift starting to occur. And I mean, I think you can kind of see that out in the workforce anymore as people are figuring out how to move away from a 9-to-5 and they can make a decent living doing what they love to do. And yeah, that's really cool. So great observation. I think another big thing, I want to kind of go back to the goals thing, is when we set these realistic goals, it keeps us from being discouraged when we don't see immediate results. And so that's where patience comes into goal setting, right? Like if we're setting these outlandish goals and then we're missing the targets, of course we're going to be discouraged. It's because we think we're going to see these immediate results. We think we're going to hit that milestone at year one. And if we, again, roll it back, we're patient with ourselves, we're realistic with ourselves. How do we move forward? How do we action these things? Great. Now we're happy because we're seeing those little wins and the failures here and there, but we're patient enough to realize those failures, pick up the pieces, and move forward in a resilient type of way. So yeah, setting patient goals gives us direction and motivation, and most importantly, I believe, purpose.
Yeah. Which I think like that whole statement that you just said, like that goes back into like your inner growth, right? Like your
Mm-hmm.
personal growth that you see within yourself, because that's a skill that is learned. Like it is not even goal setting in itself. That's a skill that's learned.
Yeah.
Like we don't just like wake up and know how to set goals, especially achievable goals like you're talking about. Like that's like a personal inner growth piece that is happening while you're also cultivating that patience within yourself, because you're learning how to do something new, and it's not easy.
And I think another good thing to talk about when it comes to setting goals and being patient with those is that that's going to help us channel our efforts towards something that truly matters to us. If we're hastily setting goals and trying to reach these milestones, we're going to be making decisions that might lead us off the path of what we think actually matters to us. And so you get down the road and maybe you accomplish that goal, but you've left a wake of devastation in your path to get there. And that's because we're not being patient in the way that we're approaching goal setting in the beginning. So we set these realistic goals and we move forward slowly. We're being patient, we're taking our time, and we get to that end result. And I really think from like a moral standpoint that makes us feel a lot better. We can celebrate those big wins, because I know in my own life, like I feel like I've gone through situations with brute force and I get to that end goal and it's just like, okay, well, what's next? Because this doesn't feel like I thought it was going to. And I think a lot of that comes from, well, I pushed through this so strongly, so forcefully. I got to this milestone and I'm tired now, but I'm looking at what's next already. And that's a lot. So if I would have been more patient, and now in my older age, right, I can look back at those things and I take the time now to celebrate previous wins because I know what went into them.
Yeah.
But that's me trying to be self-reflectant and be aware of, okay, it took all this work to get to here, but that's the big work. What was the little work? What was the day-to-day? What was the mindset? How patient did I have to be?
Yeah.
How patient was I not? How frustrated was I? Like taking that all into account, and how do I move forward being less stressed and more patient?
Well, because I think when you do hit those goals, like you were saying, like they can feel empty if you aren't growing in the everyday pieces of it. Like you work so hard for such a, chunk of time, however long it took you to hit that goal, you hit that goal and it still feels empty. It still feels hollow because you rushed past the process, right? Like exactly what we were talking at the beginning of this. It's the process. And I think that though, like falling in love with the process is what makes the goals feel fulfilling, like feel like you actually get to celebrate that and you actually get to like feel it in your bones that like, wow, I did that. And it is like it's a whole thing, but it's like really, truly, it does come back to the patience that you give yourself. And I saw this little Instagram post the other day and it said something about like, if you only have 30% to give in a given day and you give 30%, you gave 100%. And so I think that too, like as you're zooming out and you're looking at the everyday moments that are leading you to these goals, like continuing to give yourself that patience of, I don't have 100% to give right now, but I have this much and I'm going to continue to show up and I'm going to continue to give what I do have. That's still giving my all because it's exactly what I had. And that's the presence and the patience that I'm giving myself in those moments. So then once all of those days build up and you're giving different percentages of your own 100% and you hit this goal, it's like, oh my gosh, you just get to feel it,
good.
Yeah. Yeah.
When I think talking about process, something that has occurred to me over the last few months, and this is through years of experiencing it myself, but process is very similar to maintenance. There's a lot of maintenance that's wrapped up in process. And when I say maintenance, it's not like working on your car. It's the everyday maintenance of your life. There's a lot of maintenance. And that's what I'm starting to realize is life is really all about process and maintenance. And when I say maintenance, it's the things you have to do every day. You have to maintain your body, so you have to eat. You have to cook food. Then you have to put clothes on your body. Well, what do you have to do with those clothes when they're dirty? Well, you have to wash them. So it's all this maintenance. So falling in love with the things that you are essentially required to do every day, I think is very important. And that takes patience. Nobody likes to do laundry. And if you do, high fives to you. But that is probably my least favorite thing to do. And I'm trying to learn to love that. Or, putting dishes in the dishwasher. Like, we're all guilty of, you put it in the sink. Oops, I forgot about it. Now your sink's full of dishes. Like, this makes me feel like such an old person. But I'm like, every time I finish a dish or a glass, I'm putting it in the dishwasher. Again, falling in love with the process, falling in love with the maintenance, trying to be a little more patient instead of saying like, hey, I'm running out the door. I can't put this in the sink. Well, if I take that extra 5 seconds to put this in the sink, then I run out the door. That negates 30 minutes of me cleaning this whole full sink of dishes to put it in the dishwasher and then scrubbing the sink out because stuff sat in there. It's those little things. Or waiting to do laundry. If you do, wait till your basket gets full, take it in there. Well, if you start throwing clothes on the floor next to the basket, now you're spending all weekend doing laundry.
Mm-hmm.
So fall in love with that process. Do the maintenance. Be patient. And realize that the second or two you think you're saving by, I'll do that later, is actually adding up and in a big way. And it's going to take more time from you later because you're not maintaining.
Yeah. And the opposite of that, right? Like if we continue to live in like the rush and I don't want to do this right now, I'll do it later, you're just continuing to like foster these really big moments of frustration throughout your days.
Mm-hmm.
And not even just frustration with yourself, but maybe even like frustration with your partner. And then you're just like, it leaks out because it
comes into your work. It does. It filters into everything.
Yes. And I think, it just like, it has such a profound impact, and it's something that's just so simple too. I think that's something that I've, in my old age, have been learning and realizing about myself too, is that I think oftentimes when I'm thinking of those small little tasks in my day, I'm like, oh, somebody else will do it. Somebody else, as in Michael sitting across from me. Or just like this magical being that I'm just like, oh yeah, somebody else will like figure that out or fix that for me or run the load of laundry or whatever. And it's like, actually, no, like I have to take ownership over my own life, especially, this is actually, when it comes to grocery shopping and planning meals out for us, like that is one of the things that has been a struggle. And it creates this frustration within me because I'm like, I want to eat really nice food or good food, things that are like serving my body. But then like I have to go to the grocery store to get that. Nobody else is going to go and get it. Like I have to go pick it up. I have to plan to do that for myself, right? Like, and so it's just these little moments and these little practices that I think it's actually really simple to just tune into, but we can tend to like make it difficult.
Well, it's hard when there's so much noise and you're so busy with other things that you feel are more important. But the way I look at it is if we can't fall in love with the simple processes of life, the things that are, like I said, essentially required, how can we fall in love with the big daunting tasks, the processes of trying to get that promotion at work or starting a new company or launching a new product line or growing a business? We can't fall in love with those things if we haven't fallen in love with the simple things at home. Or maybe you can fall in love with those things, but you can't be dedicated and you can't be as patient as you really should be to be, successful and maneuver through those things when setbacks inevitably incur. So I think all these things are so good when it comes to personal growth. And like I said, like personally for myself, I've recognized a lot of these things over the last couple of years, and I've tried to start implementing them. Like, again, cleaning my desk before I get up. Like I come back to my workspace the next day, it's beautiful. I'm ready to go. I'm not moving stuff around. Before we leave the roastery every day, we're sweeping up, we're cleaning up, like come into a nice clean workspace the next day. People come in unexpectedly. They're coming into a beautiful space. It's the process, it's the maintenance. And again, being patient with what it takes to do that. So it's huge for the personal growth aspect. And if you start implementing patience into everything you do, I feel like you'll inevitably end up with a lot less stress, and you'll find yourself with a smile on your face far more frequently than you have in the past.
Yeah, which I just want to celebrate you for a second, because last night you did something that I noticed that I was like,
what did I do?
No, it was good. And I think it's a really great just representation and example of what it is that we're talking about. But last night, we get home a little bit later. We made dinner. We made spaghetti, sausages, like kind of a messy meal, right? We sat down, we ate, and then typically I'm just going to expose us. Like we won't do the dishes. We'll leave the spaghetti like pot just like hanging out. And then we'll wake up the next morning and we can both feel that, right? Like we can both feel like, oh my gosh, we have this like mess that we have to clean up now. Like we just got up. We want to just enjoy our coffee or whatever it is. But Michael got up off the couch and he started cleaning up the kitchen and he started doing the dishes and he started like putting things away. And like, I just appreciated that so much because then I like helped a little bit, but also I think you get to lean on each other in those different moments, but it did make such a huge difference. Like, I feel like even just like going to bed, like you're just going to bed and you're restful.
I
you're
honestly
like,
felt like I slept better, you know?
Yeah.
It's like those things that like just being aware of like how it impacts you. Somebody who talks about this type of stuff a lot actually is Rob Dyrdek. And I think we've mentioned this on previous episodes too. But he talks about how he has like life hacked his whole entire life because he's journaled things all throughout his days, how they make him feel, how they impact him. And he's basically gotten down to this formula that makes him happy, makes him like a machine to be able to walk through his days in a way that he can create progress all the time. And he can adapt to failures or setbacks very quickly. And I think that that's something we can all take note from. It's like this is our life. We have control of our life. We don't have control of much, but we do really have control of who we are and kind of what's going through our head most days. So if we can feed ourselves good thoughts, good things, do the good actions, the outcome of that is we're going to be a lot more active. We're going to be a lot more happy. We're going to be able to go out and hang out with our friends and give that 100% that we want to give. We're going to feel a lot better. And I think that that's such a cool way to approach life. But the only way you can do that is being patient with your time and saying, hey, I'm going to be present. I'm going to be aware. Did this, beer make me feel good or bad? Okay, well, maybe I should drink one less beer. Did waking up 30 minutes before I have to go to work make me feel good or bad? Well, maybe I should wake up an hour and a half before and watch one less Netflix episode of something. Just being aware of that kind of stuff. Again, it's the small details that make a large sum. Taking the time out of your day to figure out what is going to make you the most happy, the most ready to go out the door and be your happiest, most productive self. I think that's really exciting. And again, this is your life. You have control of your life. Like, get out there and do the things that are going to make you happy. I think that's a really cool thing that we have that ability to do.
Yeah, I agree.
Heck yeah. So as we're talking about, Cheyenne's exposing me for not putting the dishes away all the time.
No, but you did.
No, I
and I
appreciate
appreciated it because it impacts us too,
Well, and I think that's the next step that we're going to take in this conversation, talking about patience. Let's talk about patience in relationships and building trust. Whether this is in a personal relationship, a partnership, or in a professional relationship at work or a business partner, or looking for somebody to sell your product to. How does patience play a role in relationships? And this is something that I like to speak on because I love relationships. I love people. I love talking to people. I love, creating new relationships. I love maintaining old relationships. It's something that brings me a lot of joy. So again, this is something I feel like somehow I've been gifted with throughout my life. I've understood the patience piece of, taking the time to call your friend or call a coworker and just see how they're doing, or checking in with people or hearing people. It's so important, and that requires a lot of patience. So relationships really do encompass a ton of our connections with others, whether they're good relationships or bad relationships, whether those are friendships or family bonds or professional relationships. It's all built on trust, understanding, and mutual support. And to be able to efficiently do all of those things, you have to be usually by nature a patient person. And if you're not by nature a patient person, we got to learn how to be patient to have successful relationships.
Yeah, I mean, it's a nurture process, right? Like you're nurturing those relationships that you've started to build. And I think that, yeah, if you really value relationships in your life, if you value your partner, you value your friends, you value your family, like they deserve the nurturing that goes into making that deeper connection. And I think that that's something that I feel like I've noticed, I've felt, I'm sure other people have too, just like post-pandemic as well, like just where we're at right now, like we are craving those deep connections.
Mm-hmm.
We are craving that like community and that connection with other people. And I think we so often just like, we can see it, we can like watch other people have these relationships and we can just be like, okay, but like, how do I have that? And it truly is this like everyday process of putting in like these little tokens into those buckets, right? Like the maintenance.
It's maintenance.
It's the checking in. It's the like thinking of somebody and letting them know that you're thinking of them. Like it's so simple. And I think that that's something that I'm trying to be more aware of is like, if I think of a friend or I think of a family member and I'm just like, oh, this reminded me of them, or like this like just brought them into my mind, like I want to say that to them. And so I'm just trying to be more aware of that and take action towards that, because like we've said several times, like we're the only ones in control of that, right? If we value those relationships, we want to build those relationships, we want those deep connections, we're the only ones that are going to be able to create that in our worlds. So we have to put in the effort. We have to put in those like those small practices. And it doesn't have to take a lot of time. It really doesn't. But it is like that presence, that slowing down of like, oh my gosh, I did just think of my friend. Let me text her really quick, or let me send her a voice message and just tell her that I'm thinking of her, or whatever it is. Or my partner, like I thought of them, I saw a picture, I love them. Let me text them and tell them I love you. Like, I think it's
huge. And, talking about patience, like what role does patience play in relationships? Well, it allows us to listen to people, understand them, and empathize with them. And realistically, when we're speaking, most of the time what we want is for people to hear us and feel us and be able to help us navigate situations. And a lot of times we just want to be heard. And again, that's where patience really comes in clutch, is we're not overriding what somebody has to say, or we're not telling them how to feel. We're hearing what they're telling us. So be patient in conversations. I really do believe it's the key to sustaining relationships during challenging times, and it really nurtures trust over a long period of time. And in reality, how is trust built? Well, it's built incrementally over time, and patience is required as trust does really grow slowly. I think about it a lot. Like, obviously our thing here is we sell coffee, and when we go out and sell coffee to somebody that owns a coffee shop or a bakery or a restaurant, like that requires a relationship. That's not just like walking in and being like, hey, buy our coffee because it's super freaking dope and we're cool. No, that's not what it is. And I think about this a lot. I have a good friend who's one of the most incredible salesmen that I've ever encountered. I always say he's like Chris Farley reincarnated. And so shout out to Farmer Jeff if he's listening to this. He's the absolute man. But I always looked at him and his sales tactics and was like, how do you do it? How are you such a good salesman without being that sleazy guy pushing down stuff down people's throat? Because it's easy to sell somebody something if you're not giving them any sort of choice, if you're bullying them. And to me, you're not being patient. You're just rushing the process because you're trying to hit your numbers. You're trying to put money in your pocket. You're trying to hit a goal, whatever it may be. His tactic is patience. He gets to know you. He gets to know your family. He gets to know what you're interested in. He hears you, and then he delivers to you exactly what you need. And I think that there is so much beauty in that, because that is the essence of building a relationship. We're not building relationships here to get something out of them. We're building relationships to build relationships. If something comes out of them, beautiful. That's great. But let's build relationships to build a relationship. Why would you want to go sell something to somebody who you wouldn't want to be friends with? That does not feel like good money to me.
100%,
right?
Yeah.
So, money aside, let's be patient in our relationships, whether it is creating a new friendship, a business relationship or seeking out a partner. Like, be patient in those. You're also going to learn a lot about somebody. They're going to be very telling if you're patient and you're willing to listen, because that creates a lot of trust.
Mm-hmm.
So you get to hear some deep, dark secrets from people if you're willing to sit there and listen.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think that is so beautiful when it comes to building a relationship, is that patient ear, just being able to hang out and listen. And when you give that to other people, you also get that back, because that creates more genuine relationship.
Yeah. I think too, like you were kind of, talking in this business sense of building relationships in a business atmosphere as well, and doing it in like an ethical way, right? So I've heard it a million times, but it's the like, know, and trust factor that you have to build within your brand, within yourself. People have to like you first. They have to know you, and they have to trust you. And that takes time.
Yep.
And I think, yeah, if you just any like a little bit of encouragement to anybody who's out there starting a business, starting to like expand their network, build these relationships, like know that it takes the time. Like it really does. I think about my own business within network marketing. Like I showed up in an online space for 4 years every single day,
not making a single
dollar, just for like the sake of building that community. Like I was really just tapping it. My business wasn't even a thing at that point. Like,
yeah, the intentionality was not that. You showed up in a genuine way. And I think that's resonating off what, building genuine connection, genuine relationship. Sorry to interrupt.
No, it's okay.
Yeah,
no,
I like that arc.
I appreciate that, because it's true though. So like just that reminder, if you're needing to hear it, that like if you're in the trenches, it's been a year, you're struggling, you're like, oh my gosh, I had this goal, I wanted to hit it, it's not happening yet. Like just know that it truly takes that time to build those relationships, to pour the patience into the everyday task, like we've been talking about over and over, like showing up every day for the things that you love and the things that you're passionate about. But then the payout is so huge, because people have walked into my life that I never would have met if I hadn't shown up for those 4 years. And, we've seen different successes and different seasons of growth and of not growth. And like, we've been through this thing for a really long time, but like, the people is what like continues to make you show up for these things, I think. And I think that I can speak for Michael with that as well. Like,
oh yeah,
it's the people, it's the relationships. And it's like, if it took me 10 years to build a relationship with like 3 people that, were genuinely affected and touched by the product that I sell, it would be worth it. Like it's incredible what that can build over time. So yeah, keep sticking it out, keep showing up, keep doing it, put in the time to build those relationships, because they truly are worth it. Yeah. Be patient.
Another thing that I want to touch on with patience is it helps us foster a deep understanding of somebody else's needs when it comes to a relationship. So that's also going to allow a relationship to evolve and adapt as circumstances or somebody grows and changes. Again, be patient with somebody, hear what they have to say, have that open communication, and allow time for misunderstandings to occur. And if there is going to be misunderstandings, you're going to be able to fix them because you're patient, you're open, you're understanding. And yeah, it prevents knee-jerk reactions and conflicts from escalating. And those are the kind of conversations that I like to have with people. And it's hard to be aware of that. And I've also found myself, again, the more patient I'm trying to be, I'm no longer resolving any sort of conflict over a text message or in an email. If somebody's, a different state than me, then I'm going to pick up the phone and I'm going to call them, because you're not being patient when you're firing out an email or a text, nor are you communicating efficiently.
Mm-hmm.
People can't pick up your inflection through a screen.
Mm-hmm.
So let's get on the phone, or even better, hey, can we meet for a coffee or a beer? Can we talk in person? Because you can be a lot more patient that way. You're face to face, and you're less likely to say something you don't mean if you're sitting in front of somebody that you have respect for,
mm-hmm.
or that you feel has disrespected you. You're going to take the time, you're going to be patient. And by you doing that, if that person's frustrated with you, you'll probably change their mind and have them be patient as well. So yeah, I think, again, just going into things, trying to exercise patience is the best thing that we can do, especially when it comes to relationships.
It's just like coming back to the roots of humanity and like
Yeah.
how we connect and how we thrive here on this earth together, you know? Like there was never, for the, you know, the longest time, there was never like the option to text somebody and tell them all of the things you think, or there was never the option to like, you know, find somebody randomly on the internet and like say something mean or like unkind to them. Like
even you talking about that, like I feel like, you know, 3-4 years ago, I was so inclined to like tell somebody how I felt when I saw a comment on Facebook that I didn't like. And as I've been going through this process of attempting to be more patient, it's also helped me understand that, you know, people's outlook on life is going to be different than mine. And I should celebrate that. And again, it's being patient. And like, you look at what somebody said and it's like, okay, well, how have you experienced life to make you feel that way?
Yeah.
Okay, if I put myself in your shoes, I can understand that.
Yeah.
I took the time. I'm patient enough to say, okay, you're different than me. And that's okay. We should celebrate that. And yeah, again, we never have had the world that we live in right now where that was so easy to like jump down somebody's throat for their opinion. Well, here's something that's crazy about life. Everything is an opinion.
Yeah.
How I feel is an opinion. How Cheyenne feels is an opinion. How you feel is an opinion. There is no actual, like, this is the way it has to be. So let's be patient enough to hear other people's opinion because it might change how you feel or it might give you some respect for how they feel.
Well, it's just like we're navigating this world that we've never lived in before too. And so like kind of back to my point, I agree with everything you said. Like we're just like, it's like coming back to the roots of the humanity and just of the existence here and fostering that patience that like our ancestors once had and enjoying the everyday tiny little tasks that our ancestors once did and having those open, honest communications face to face with people like we once did, because somewhere along the lines of just the progression of everything, which we're so fortunate and we love technology over here. We love that option, but also we've lost some of those skills in the way. So tuning back into those, I think, has been just some growth for both of us in our lives and encouraging that as well. So,
well, as we're kind of getting into wrapping this up, I just want to talk a little bit about the art of waiting, the art of patience. And obviously we've talked about so many different facets of it, but in a world that values instant results, waiting can really be seen as a burden. However, it's essential to recognize that some of life's most valuable experiences and growth occur during periods of waiting. I think that is the most important thing that I hope everybody can take away from this episode is you're not a burden for taking more time. You're not burdening anybody for not going out. You're not, you're taking time. You're being patient with how you're navigating. And I think that to me, I have a lot of respect for people who are patient and they're making calculated decisions. And sometimes you have to make a rushed, fast decision, but the more habitual you can be with patience, I feel like that really slows things down and you get more life out of that, which seems kind of counterintuitive, right? But being more present equals more life. And the only way you're going to be more present is by being more patient. And it's a funny joke that me and my friends say all the time, but time isn't real. We made up the numerical value that time is. So trying to disassociate a little bit from saying like, oh, I've got all this stuff going on in my 24-hour day and just being a little bit more present and forgetting about, oh my gosh, I have to be here at this time. Be present in the time that you have. Get to where you need to go on time. I'm not saying that. But when you're sitting in the car and you're mad because you're in traffic, be present in that traffic. Smile at the person driving next to you. Listen to the words in the song that you're listening to. Is that song making you mad? Change the song. Be present, be patient, because again, it's going to give us more life in the end. It's going to give us a more fulfilled life also, I believe.
Well, and I think it's also you're building yourself in those moments, right? Like you are, and I think that that's, you know, the biggest theme of like these episodes that we get to do together is just encouraging you to like be intentional with yourself and to allow that growth in yourself if that's something that you're craving. And I think those moments that you're talking about, that's where we build who we are and who we want to be.
Well, it's what defines us. Even if we're not aware that it's defining us, on the outside, people are looking at your actions and how you're overcoming the hard days and how you're expressing the good ones. That is going to define who you are. And so, again, approaching that with a little bit of waiting and patience, that changes the game. And it makes you appear, and I should rephrase that. It doesn't make you appear. It makes you more gentle.
Yeah. And it also, you're building yourself, but then you're also building your life, like you're saying. So I think if we want to have the most fulfilled, most peaceful, most just present and patient life, it's in those moments, it's in those tiny everyday things that we have to really tune into and decide who we want to be and how we want to show up in those. So,
and as we go about like wrapping this episode up, I just want to touch again. I know we've probably said it a million times, but there is something beautiful about trying to master patience and waiting. And mastering waiting involves understanding that some of life's most rewarding outcomes require a lot of time and effort. It doesn't just happen. And it's all about choosing long-term fulfillment over short-term satisfaction. And again, like we just talked about how great social media or technology can be, but a lot of these tools have taught us that you can get it done faster. You should be satisfied or satiated with that short-term problem solving. And while it might feel good in the moment, again, it's that long-term fulfillment. It is long-term. It stays with you for a long time. And patience, that is a byproduct of patience. So, yeah.
And I think I know personally for me, and maybe you can agree or maybe you don't, but I think the things that I am most attracted to, most pulled towards are within people and relationships and businesses and all of the products and everything. It's the people, the brands, the whatever it is that is showing that long-term fulfillment. It's showing me like how this is going to affect my day-to-day life, how it's going to fulfill me even more. The short-term gratification, like I just am not personally attracted to that. And it's usually if it sounds too good,
usually
probably is.
When I think, touching on brands, and again, this is another thing we can be aware of is how we consume from brands or people we follow on the internet. If people are just following trends or brands are just following trends, that's short term.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of equity in that for me anyways. And so I know when I'm consuming that type of content or buying those type of products, it's not a long-term fulfillment kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so now as I've tried to switch my mindset into being, okay, I want that long-term fulfillment. Okay, what am I consuming? What am I purchasing? Who am I purchasing from? Why am I purchasing it? All of those things require a lot of patience.
Yeah.
And, patience and waiting provides a lot of opportunity for self-reflection, for learning, personal growth. And it's a chance for us to really figure out who we are and what we want long-term and kind of put that short-term satisfaction to the side. Now, we all know short-term satisfaction feels good every now and then, but don't make that the main priority for you.
Yeah,
So,
I agree.
Yeah, this has been a really fun episode.
This was a good one. I feel like I needed it as well. Like that's what I love about these episodes too, is usually it's a concept that we're currently working through or that we're currently pursuing in our own lives that we get to bring to you guys. So I love it fulfills me too.
When we were talking about planning this episode, I was like, what should we talk about? And I was kind of sitting there thinking, and yeah, patience was the one that just, like I said at the beginning of this episode, it's been very, very hectic around here for the last couple months, and in such a positive way. There's been a ton of wins, but there's also been a lot of setback and failure. And yeah, I'm excited to share what all of those look like. But yeah, it's it's just such a cool thing to be able to navigate through that stuff and not be frustrated or stressed. And I think about myself 4 or 5 years ago, and I would have been losing my mind. I would have probably locked myself in my room and not come out with the amount of stress that I would be under right now if I hadn't approached these things from a sense of patience. Mm-hmm. So yeah, that's really exciting. If you've made it this far, I also want to touch on the fact that I'm sipping on a Traction Coffee Summer Blend Snap Chill, and this stuff is so tasty. Arguably one of the best black coffee snap chills we've ever done. It's got juicy, tasty notes of stone fruit and chocolate. I'm going to leak it a little bit here for you, just so you know. If you've drank our coffee, the Colombia Puerto Alegre, which is my favorite coffee, my favorite single origin coffee ever, that is a proponent to the blend that's in Summer Blend, and it is so juicy. I know we're towards the end of the summer season, but we've got a ton of these cans here. So if you're interested in checking them out, they are on the site now. They're on sale. And we're also selling Snap Chill by the case, which means if you buy a case of Snap Chill, we're giving it to you for a wholesale price. So that would be the price that we would sell to a restaurant or anybody like that. So you can save yourself a few bucks by picking up a full case of Snap Chill on our website. So definitely check it out. And if you have questions on what Snap Chill is or about any of our other coffees or products, definitely don't hesitate to reach out, whether it be on Instagram or via email. We're always happy to chat with you guys. So you have anything else to add, Cheyenne?
No, I just feel like these cans are like an ode to long live summer, because summer is my favorite season.
Yep.
So if you are hanging on to every little bit of summer like I am, pick up some Summer Blend cans.
Yeah, we were talking about this the other day. Is like, how do we like commemorate summer? And it's like, well, we're gonna do summer forever, and that's what these Summer Blend cans are. This Summer Blend has been one of my favorites that we've ever done. It's so well balanced. It's juicy. It's fruity. It tastes like summer, whether you're brewing it up from the Summer Blend bag of blend, whether you're brewing it up from the Summer Blend. Oh my gosh, I can't talk. I guess I need a couple more sips of Snap Chill. Whether you're brewing up the beans or sipping from the can, it's pretty incredible. So definitely check out Summer Blend before it's gone. When these cans sell out, we won't be restocking them until next summer. And same thing for the beans. So go check that out. That's our little plug for the episode. And as always, thank you so much for listening. I want to apologize since there has been such a lapse, but season 2 is here of Scared of Normal. It's on. And this project has been so fun. So thank you all so much for being here. And if you're enjoying these episodes on YouTube, please like and subscribe. And if you're listening to them on Spotify, Apple, or Amazon, please leave us a review. It greatly helps get the word out and allows us to keep this project rolling strong. Thank you so much for being a part of the Traction family. We'll catch you on the next one. Keep being scared of normal. We're out.